Hi guys, today we are going to tell you a story that begins long before cities, long before writing, long before the idea of history itself. Tonight we are going to travel far back in time to a quiet and ancient world where the nights were long, the air was cold, and small groups of humans gathered together in the glow of fire. This is the story of the Neanderthals, not as monsters, not as myths, but as people. Real people who lived, breathed, cared, rested, and survived in a world that asked much of them. As you listen, there is nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to learn. You don't need to hold onto dates or names. Just allow the images to drift slowly through your mind like shadows on a cave wall. Let the rhythm of the story carry you gently as we begin at the very beginning. Imagine a world shaped by ice. Not endless white, but vast stretches of land where cold winds moved through open plains and forests. Snow came and went with the seasons. Rivers cut through valleys, sometimes frozen, sometimes flowing. Herds of animals moved slowly across the land, following ancient paths they had walked for thousands of years. And beneath wide skies and long nights, small groups of humans lived close to the earth. These humans were not us, but they were not strangers either. They were Neanderthals. For a very long time, humans of the modern world misunderstood them. We imagined them as simple, brutal, or less than human. But the truth, revealed slowly through bones, tools, and quiet traces left behind, tells a different story, a softer story. One of resilience, intelligence, and deep connection to place and family. To understand the Neanderthals, we must begin even earlier, before they had a name, before they had a distinct form. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, early human ancestors moved out of Africa and into new lands. Generation after generation walked northward, eastward, westward, adapting slowly to colder climates and unfamiliar environments. Over time, their bodies changed, not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually, as all living things do when they settle into a place and learn how to survive there. In Europe and parts of Western Asia, these ancestors faced colder temperatures than their African origins had prepared them for. Winters were longer, sunlight was weaker, food could be scarce, survival required strength, efficiency, and cooperation. Over many thousands of years, these early humans became something new. Their bodies grew shorter and stockier, better at conserving heat. Their bones became thick and strong. Their chests widened to support powerful lungs. Their faces changed too, with broad noses that helped warm cold air before it reached the lungs. This was not evolution racing forward. It was evolution moving patiently, quietly, step by step. And eventually these people became what we now call Neanderthals. They did not wake up one day as Neanderthals. There was no single moment of becoming. They simply were the result of countless lives lived successfully in a challenging land. Neanderthals lived across a wide range of territory. From what is now Spain and France, across Central Europe and into parts of the Middle East. Their world was large, but their lives were local. Most Neanderthals spent their entire lives within familiar landscapes, knowing every valley, every river bend, every seasonal movement of animals. They were deeply connected to their environment. A Neanderthal child would grow up learning the land through experience, where the sun rose in winter, where animals sheltered during storms, where flint could be found to make tools. Knowledge was not written or spoken in long explanations. It was shown, demonstrated, repeated. Life followed rhythms. Mornings might begin slowly, with embers stirred back to life after a long night, the smell of smoke lingering in the air, the group waking one by one, tools checked, food shared if there was any left from the night before. Days were spent moving, watching, waiting. Hunting was not a constant chase. It involved long periods of observation, patience, and cooperation. Neanderthals hunted large animals, yes, but not recklessly. They understood risk. They knew injury could mean death, and so they worked together. Evidence shows that Neanderthals cared for their injured and elderly. Some skeletons reveal individuals who lived many years despite serious injuries that would have made hunting impossible. Broken bones that healed, missing teeth that required others to prepare softer food. This tells us something important. Neanderthals did not abandon their weak. They lived in communities where survival was shared. In the evenings, groups would return to shelter, sometimes caves, sometimes open-air camps protected by rock walls or natural formations, and always where possible there was fire. Fire was not just a tool, it was a presence. The glow of flames pushed back the darkness. It warmed hands stiff from the cold. It made food easier to eat, easier to digest. It kept predators at a distance. But beyond all of that, fire created something else. Time. When the fire burned steadily, the night slowed down. There was space to rest, to sit, to simply be together. Shadows danced on stone walls. Sparks rose and disappeared into the dark. The sound of crackling wood filled the silence. Around the fire, Neanderthals likely shared more than warmth. They shared stories, gestures, expressions, and moments of connection. We may never know the exact nature of their language, but we know they communicated. Their lives depended on it. Fire made the night safe enough for social life, and in a cold world that mattered deeply. Neanderthals were skilled toolmakers. Their tools were not crude. They were carefully shaped, balanced, and effective. Stone flakes were struck with precision. Spears were crafted for strength and reliability. These tools were maintained, reused, and carried across landscapes. This was not random behavior. It was knowledge passed down through generations. A Neanderthal did not need many possessions. What they carried mattered. What they made had purpose. Their lives were not cluttered. They were focused. Seasons came and went. In warmer months, food was more abundant. Plants, roots, fruits, and small animals supplemented hunting. In colder times, survival depended more heavily on planning and cooperation. Firewood had to be gathered, shelters maintained, movements timed carefully. And through all of this, Neanderthals endured. For hundreds of thousands of years, they survived ice ages, climate shifts, and changing landscapes. They were not a brief experiment. They were one of the most successful human populations to ever exist, and they were not alone forever. Eventually, another kind of human began to move into Neanderthal lands, humans who looked different, humans who came from Africa more recently, humans we now call modern humans. At first, these encounters were likely rare, occasional, curious, cautious, two kinds of humans noticing each other across a distance. Watching, learning, over time their paths crossed more often, and when they did, something remarkable happened. They did not only compete, they connected. Modern science has shown us that Neanderthals and modern humans had children together. They shared lives, even if briefly. And because of that, many people alive today still carry Neanderthal DNA within them. The Neanderthals did not vanish completely. They became part of us. The flames flicker softly, and as the warmth settles into tired muscles and the night stretches long around the shelter, we continue. The Neanderthals wake with the land. Morning does not arrive suddenly. It unfolds slowly, with a pale light creeping across the sky, filtering through branches or reaching the mouth of a cave. The fire, reduced to glowing embers, is stirred back to life with practiced hands. A breath, a movement, a small piece of dry wood placed just right, and warmth returns. This is not a rushed world. Time moves differently here. Neanderthals live by cycles they know deeply. The slow turning of seasons, the movement of animals, the feel of cold growing sharper as winter approaches, or loosening its grip when spring begins to soften the ground. These rhythms are learned early and remembered always. A Neanderthal child grows up watching more than listening. Knowledge is carried in hands, in gestures, in repeated actions. How to strike stone just so. How to recognize tracks pressed lightly into mud or snow. How to read the sky, the wind, the silence that sometimes falls over the land before a storm. There is comfort in familiarity. The land is not something separate from them. It is part of their identity. Each valley and ridge holds memory, a place where an animal was taken, a place where shelter was found during a sudden snowfall, a place where someone was injured and cared for, or where a life quietly ended. Movement across the landscape is careful and deliberate. Neanderthals do not wander aimlessly. They travel along routes refined over generations, stopping where resources are known, where shelter can be found, where water flows even in colder months. Hunting, when it happens, is an act of cooperation. Large animals require planning, patience, strength applied at the right moment. Neanderthals are not reckless hunters. They understand the cost of injury. A broken bone can mean weeks of recovery. An infection can mean death. And so they work together, using the terrain to their advantage, guiding animals into narrow spaces, tiring them waiting. When a hunt is successful, it is not a moment of chaos. It is followed by careful work, skinning, cutting, sharing. Every part of the animal matters: meat for food, hides for warmth, bones for tools. Nothing is wasted lightly. Food is eaten slowly, often near the fire. Cooking softens meat, making it easier to chew and digest. It brings comfort and familiarity. The smell of cooked food becomes part of home. Fire remains at the center of everything. Fire is not just for survival, it shapes how Neanderthals experience the world. It allows them to live in colder regions where darkness comes early and stays long. It extends the day, creating hours after sunset where people can sit together without fear. Around the fire, the body relaxes, muscles loosen. Breathing slows, the day's effort fades into memory. This is when connections deepen. A glance held a little longer, a shared piece of food, a quiet moment sitting side by side, listening to the soft sounds of burning wood. Neanderthals likely used their voices around the fire, perhaps not in long, complex stories as we imagine them today, but in meaningful sounds, gestures, expressions. Communication does not need to be elaborate to be powerful. A warning, a reassurance, a shared understanding. The firelight reveals faces, not as harsh shapes, but as familiar forms. Broad noses, strong brows, eyes reflecting warmth. These are not primitive beings. These are humans shaped by their environment, adapted to a demanding world and deeply social. Children learn here. They watch adults repair tools. They mimic movements with small stones and sticks. They learn which sounds mean danger, which means safety. They fall asleep near the warmth, comforted by the presence of others. Sleep itself is different in this world. It is lighter, more responsive. A Neanderthal does not sink into deep isolation at night. The group sleeps together, alert even in rest. Sounds are noted, smells are recognized. Fire is tended carefully, never allowed to die completely if it can be helped. Fire is protection. Predators are less likely to approach the glow and smoke. The fire marks a boundary between safety and the unknown. Beyond it lies darkness, cold, and uncertainty. Within it lies warmth, light, and community. As seasons change, so do routines. In colder months, Neanderthals spend more time in sheltered areas. Caves become important not as permanent homes but as seasonal refuges. Open-air camps are used when weather allows. Flexibility is key. Nothing is fixed forever. Neanderthals are adaptable. Their tools reflect this adaptability. The stone tools they make are suited to specific tasks: scraping hides, cutting meat, shaping wood. They are not decorative, they are practical, reliable, and effective. Toolmaking is almost meditative. A stone is examined carefully. Its shape, its flaws, its potential. Strikes are deliberate. Each flake removed reveals the next step. This is not random smashing. It is skilled craftsmanship passed down through countless repetitions. Fire plays a role here too. Heat can be used to improve stone quality, making it easier to shape. Firelight allows tool making to continue after dark. The fire becomes a workspace, not just a source of warmth. As the years pass, Neanderthals grow older. Elders are not discarded. They are valued for their knowledge. Even when their bodies weaken, their experience remains vital. They remember past winters, past migrations, past mistakes and successes. Injuries are common in such a demanding life, and yet evidence shows that Neanderthals cared for one another. Broken limbs healed because others helped. Illnesses were endured with support. This level of care requires empathy, patience, and commitment. It requires love, and love is not exclusive to modern humans. Neanderthals also had emotional lives. They experienced loss, joy, fear, attachment. These are not abstract ideas. They are written into the bones of individuals who lived far longer than they should have without help. Death, when it came, was not always treated casually. Some Neanderthals appear to have buried their dead, carefully placed bodies, sometimes with tools, sometimes with signs of ritual or intention. We cannot know exactly what they believed, but we know they marked death as something meaningful. Fire may have played a role here too, a source of light during mourning, a presence during rituals, a symbol of continuity in a world where life could be fragile. And so life continues, year after year, generation after generation. Neanderthals thrive in their world. They survive ice ages. They adapt to changing climates. They live where others cannot. They are not fading, but change is coming. Far to the south, in warmer lands, another kind of human is evolving. Humans with slightly different bodies, slightly different tools, different ways of moving through the world. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, these humans begin to move northward. At first, Neanderthals are unaware. Then perhaps they notice unfamiliar tools left behind, new footprints, fires built in slightly different ways, the scent of others carried on the wind. Encounters are rare at first. When they happen, they are cautious, two groups observing each other from a distance, listening, watching, learning, neither fully understanding what the other represents. But over time, these meetings become more frequent, and something unexpected happens. Instead of constant conflict, there is exchange, there is coexistence, there is learning, and sometimes there is intimacy. Neanderthals and modern humans share knowledge, they share spaces, they share lives. And in some cases, they share families. This is not the end of the Neanderthals yet, but it is the beginning of a profound transformation. The flames glow. And as the warmth settles once again into the quiet circle of light, we move deeper into the story, following fire itself and the way it shaped Neanderthal life in ways both subtle and profound. Fire was not accidental for the Neanderthals. They did not simply stumble upon it and hope it stayed. They understood it. They carried it. They protected it. In a world where cold could kill and darkness could hide danger, fire was too valuable to lose. Embers were transported carefully. Flames were fed patiently. Fire became something reliable, almost familiar, like a trusted companion that followed them through the seasons. The relationship between Neanderthals and fire was intimate. Fire altered their bodies over time. Warmth reduced the constant strain of cold on muscles and organs. Cooked food required less energy to digest, allowing calories to be used more efficiently. Over generations, this combination of warmth and nutrition supported strong, compact bodies built for endurance. Fire also changed how Neanderthals thought. Long nights around the fire created extended periods of wakefulness without fear. In these hours, the mind could wander, memories could be shared, experiences reflected upon. Planning could happen not just for the next day, but for seasons ahead. This kind of thinking takes time. Fire gave them that time. The glow of flames softened the harsh edges of survival. It created a space where vigilance could relax slightly, where attention could turn inward, where relationships could deepen. Children growing up around fire learned more than survival skills. They learned patience. They learned observation. They learned that warmth could be created and maintained through care and attention. Fire taught responsibility. A neglected fire went out. An uncontrolled fire became dangerous. Learning to manage it required awareness, restraint, and cooperation. These lessons shaped social behavior just as much as hunting or tool-making did. Fire also allowed Neanderthals to expand their range. Without fire, colder regions would have been impossible to inhabit year-round. With fire, Neanderthals could settle into environments that others avoided. They could endure harsh winters, using warmth to survive long nights and frozen landscapes. Shelters became more effective with fire. Caves were no longer damp and unwelcoming. Smoke drove away insects, heat dried the air. Light reached into dark spaces, revealing their shape and safety. Even open shelters could be transformed by a well-placed hearth. The hearth became the heart of Neanderthal life. Around it, tools were repaired, food was prepared, stories were shared, children slept, elders rested. The hearth marked the center of the group, both physically and emotionally. As time passed, Neanderthals refined their use of fire. They learned which woods burned slowly and which flared quickly, which produced more smoke, which lasted through the night. This knowledge was not written down, it was lived, remembered, passed on. Fire became predictable, and predictability brings comfort. In a world filled with uncertainty, fire was one of the few things Neanderthals could rely on. It responded to care. It rewarded attention. It punished neglect. It was honest. The presence of fire also changed how Neanderthals experienced fear. Darkness without fire is absolute. Shapes are imagined. Sounds are amplified. The unknown presses close. With fire, the darkness retreats. Boundaries become visible. Fear becomes manageable. This matters. Living constantly in fear drains energy. Fire reduced that burden. It allowed Neanderthals to rest more deeply, even if sleep remained light and alert. Over generations, these small advantages added up. Neanderthals were not rushing toward progress. They were settling into balance, a stable relationship with their environment, a way of life that worked, and it worked for a very long time. Hundreds of thousands of years passed with Neanderthals thriving across their lands. Ice sheets advanced and retreated. Forests spread and withdrew. Animals migrated, adapted, disappeared, returned. Neanderthals adjusted. Their tools changed slowly, refined rather than replaced. Their social structures remained flexible. Groups formed, split, reunited. Alliances shifted, families grew and changed. This was not a static culture, it was a living one. As modern humans slowly entered Neanderthal territories, fire became a point of shared understanding. Both species knew its value, both gathered around it. In those early encounters, fire may have been one of the first bridges between them, a shared warmth, a shared need. Around unfamiliar fires, humans watched one another, how tools were made, how food was prepared, how children were treated, how the injured were cared for. These observations mattered. Cultural exchange did not require words. It happened through imitation, curiosity, and proximity. Neanderthals learned new techniques. Modern humans learned old ones. Knowledge flowed quietly without ceremony. In some regions, Neanderthal tool traditions persisted alongside new styles. In others, they blended. This blending tells us something important. Neanderthals were not simply replaced, they interacted. They adapted, they integrated. Fire continued to be central in this changing world. As climates shifted again, becoming colder and less predictable, fire became even more essential. Resources grew scarcer. Hunting became more challenging. Survival demanded efficiency and cooperation. Some Neanderthal groups struggled, not because they were incapable, but because the world around them was changing faster than before. Ice ages intensified, forests fragmented. Familiar animals moved or disappeared. Modern humans, arriving with different social networks and broader trade connections, had certain advantages. Larger groups, wider communication, faster spread of ideas, but Neanderthals did not vanish overnight. Their numbers declined gradually. Populations thinned, groups became isolated. In some areas, Neanderthals persisted long after others had disappeared. During this time, interbreeding continued. The children were born who carried traits from both worlds: strong bodies, flexible thinking, combined knowledge. These children grew up around fires that carried mixed traditions. This is how Neanderthals survived, not as a separate people forever, but as part of a larger human story. Their disappearance was not a sudden extinction. It was a slow blending, a fading of distinct identity into a shared future. Fire burned through it all. From the earliest Neanderthal hearths to the fires shared with modern humans, the flame remained constant. A witness to change, a companion through uncertainty. Even as Neanderthal populations declined, their influence endured, their genes persisted, their adaptations lived on. Their relationship with fire shaped the humans who followed. Modern humans inherited this legacy. Our love of warmth, our instinct to gather around firelight, our tendency to associate flames with safety, comfort, and home. These are ancient echoes. They come from a time when fire was life itself. The land begins to feel different. The cold still comes, but it comes unevenly now. Winters grow harsher in some places, shorter in others. Forests retreat, then return in altered forms. Grasslands expand where trees once stood. The animals Neanderthals have followed for countless generations begin to shift their routes, appearing less predictably, sometimes not at all. For people whose lives are tied so closely to the land, these changes are deeply felt. Neanderthal groups respond as they always have, by adapting. They move when they must. They alter hunting strategies. They rely more heavily on familiar shelters. Fire becomes even more central, not only for warmth, but for stability in an increasingly uncertain environment. The hearth burns more often now. Longer nights mean longer hours around the fire. The glow becomes a constant presence, a steady reassurance against the unpredictability outside. Food is cooked carefully, stretched as far as possible. Tools are repaired and reused again and again. Nothing is wasted. Groups become smaller. Where once larger communities could gather during abundant seasons, now resources support fewer people. Bands split more often, traveling lighter, covering wider areas in search of food. These separations are not always permanent, but they increase isolation. Isolation changes things. When groups are small and scattered, knowledge spreads more slowly. A new technique discovered in one place may never reach another. A successful hunting strategy may die with the people who practiced it. Connections weaken. Modern humans, by contrast, tend to maintain broader networks. They travel farther. They exchange tools and materials across long distances. Ideas move with them, passing from group to group, adapting quickly to new challenges. This difference is subtle, but over time it matters. Neanderthals are still skilled. They still hunt effectively. They still care for one another. They still build fires, shelters, and lives that work, but the margin for error grows thinner. A failed hunt matters more. An injury takes longer to recover from. A harsh winter leaves deeper marks. Children are still born. They grow up near the fire, learning the same lessons their ancestors learned. how to read the land, how to shape stone. How to tend a flame. They are loved, protected, guided, but fewer survive to adulthood, not because Neanderthals lack care, but because the world has become less forgiving. Encounters with modern humans increase. Sometimes these encounters are brief, a glimpse across a valley, a distant fire seen at night, a tool found where no Neanderthal camp should be. Sometimes they are closer, shared shelters, overlapping hunting grounds, quiet observation. There is tension at times, but not constant war. Archaeological evidence does not show endless violence. Instead, it suggests long periods of coexistence. Learning, borrowing, adapting. Neanderthals adopt some new tool styles. Modern humans adopt some Neanderthal techniques. Fire remains common ground. Around shared flames, differences soften. Hunger feels the same. Cold feels the same. Fatigue feels the same. These shared experiences matter more than appearance or origin. Interbreeding continues. Children born of both lineages grow up within communities that may lean more one way or the other. Some carry Neanderthal features more strongly. Others resemble modern humans more closely. All are human. Over time, these mixed individuals become more common. Purely Neanderthal groups become rarer. This is not something anyone notices happening. There is no announcement, no awareness of an ending. Life simply continues, adapting as it always has. Elders still sit near the fire. Their faces are weathered now by colder winds and harder years. They remember times when animals were more plentiful, when groups were larger, when the land felt more predictable. They pass these memories on not as history but as lived experience. Some stories no longer apply. Routes once reliable no longer bring food. Shelters once safe now flood or collapse. Knowledge that worked for generations begins to lose its usefulness. This is one of the hardest challenges a culture can face. Neanderthals respond with patience. They do not abandon their ways suddenly. They adjust slowly, cautiously, but adaptation takes time, and time is becoming scarce. Fire continues to burn. In the coldest months, it burns almost constantly. Fuel is gathered whenever possible. Even children help, carrying small pieces of wood, learning early the importance of keeping the hearth alive. Fire is no longer just comfort. It is necessity. Without it, survival through long winters would be impossible. Without cooked food, energy would be lost. Without warmth, illness would take hold. Fire holds everything together, but fire alone cannot solve every problem. As populations thin, some groups disappear entirely. A valley once familiar falls silent. A shelter once used season after season remains empty. These absences are felt, even if they are not understood as part of a larger pattern. The world feels quieter. Modern humans begin to dominate more regions. Their camps appear more frequently. Their tools are more varied. Their social networks wider. They adapt quickly to changing conditions. Neanderthals do not fail. They are simply overtaken by circumstances beyond their control. In some regions, Neanderthals persist longer than anywhere else. Coastal areas, southern refuges, places where climate remains more stable. Here, Neanderthal traditions continue for thousands of years after they have vanished elsewhere. These last Neanderthals live much as their ancestors did. They gather around fire, they hunt, they care for one another, they raise children. They adapt as best they can, but the world around them is now largely shaped by modern humans. Eventually, even these final groups fade, not in a single moment, not in a dramatic collapse, but gradually as individuals merge into larger populations, as children grow up within mixed communities, as distinct Neanderthal identity dissolves into something broader. The fire remains, it always remains. The same flames that warmed Neanderthal hands now warm the hands of their descendants, though those descendants may not know it. The same instinct to gather at night, to share warmth and food, to feel safe within a circle of light, continues unbroken. Neanderthals are gone as a separate people, but they are not gone from the world. They live on in bones and genes, in immune systems, in skin and hair, in the way some bodies respond to cold. In subtle traits passed quietly from parent to child, they live on in us. Every time humans seek comfort in warmth, every time we cook food, every time we associate firelight with home, safety, and rest, we echo a relationship that stretches back hundreds of thousands of years. Neanderthals shaped humanity. Not through conquest, not through dominance, but through endurance, through care, through living successfully in some of the harshest environments our species has ever faced. Their story is not one of failure, it is one of contribution. For a very long while the world forgets them, not entirely but almost. As modern humans spread across continents, building cultures, languages, myths, and eventually civilizations, the memory of Neanderthals becomes distorted. Bones found in caves are misunderstood, stone tools are misattributed. The idea of another kind of human feels uncomfortable, even threatening to later societies that prefer simple stories of origin. When Neanderthals are first rediscovered in the modern age, they are misunderstood again. Their bones are labeled crude, their bodies described as brutish, their minds assumed to be empty. They are painted as failed experiments, evolutionary dead ends, reminders of what humanity left behind on its way to greatness. But this story does not hold, and slowly, patiently, evidence begins to speak. It begins with bones, carefully uncovered from caves and rock shelters across Europe and Western Asia. Neanderthal skeletons tell a story written not in words, but in shape, wear, and healing. Thick bones show strength, yes, but also endurance. Healed fractures tell of care and time. Teeth worn down not just by age, but by use as tools, gripping hides and fibers. These bones do not belong to mindless creatures. They belong to people who lived hard lives and survived them. Then there are the tools. Stone tools once dismissed as simple are re-examined. Under close study, they reveal sophistication. Standardized forms, efficient designs, intentional choices. These tools are not random. They are the product of skill, planning, and teaching. Fire use becomes undeniable. Ash layers, hearths. Burned bones, charcoal preserved in ancient soil. Fire was not occasional for Neanderthals. It was central, regular, managed. This alone changes everything. A species that controls fire controls time, safety, and social space. Fire does not belong to animals without foresight. It belongs to beings who plan, remember, and teach. Then come the signs of symbolism. Pigments ground into powder, feathers collected not for food but for display, objects carefully placed with the dead. Cave markings once attributed only to modern humans now dated earlier to Neanderthal times. These discoveries unsettle old assumptions. Symbolism implies imagination. Imagination implies inner life, and inner life implies humanity. Language, long considered the final barrier between Neanderthals and modern humans, is reconsidered too. The structure of Neanderthal throats, the shape of their inner ears, the genes associated with speech. All suggest that Neanderthals were capable of complex vocal communication, perhaps not identical to modern language, but rich enough to convey meaning, emotion, and shared understanding. They did not live in silence, they lived in conversation. As the evidence grows, the story shifts. Neanderthals are no longer shadows at the edge of humanity. They move closer, becoming familiar, relatable. Their struggles feel understandable, their solutions clever, their lives deeply human. And then comes the discovery that changes everything. DNA. For the first time, scientists extract genetic material from Neanderthal bones, fragile strands preserved through unimaginable time, carefully sequenced, compared. The result is astonishing. Neanderthals are not strangers, they are relatives. Modern humans outside of Africa carry Neanderthal DNA, not a trace, not an accident, but a meaningful portion, proof of interbreeding, proof of shared families. Proof that Neanderthals were not erased, but absorbed. This realization reshapes our understanding of ourselves. Neanderthals are not something we replaced, they are something we became with. Their genes influence immune responses, skin adaptation, fat storage, responses to cold, even aspects of sleep and mood. Traits that once helped Neanderthals survive harsh Ice Age environments now live on quietly within millions of people. Their legacy is biological but also emotional. The way humans respond to warmth, the comfort found in firelight, the instinct to gather in the evening, the feeling of safety that comes from shared space. These are ancient patterns deeply rooted in a time when fire meant survival. Even now, long after fire has been tamed into switches and screens, its pull remains. People sit around campfires, fireplaces, candles. We lower lights at night. We seek warmth when tired. We associate flickering light with rest. These instincts did not begin with civilization. They began with Neanderthals and their ancestors, sitting quietly together, listening to wood crackle in the dark. Neanderthals also leave behind a lesson in humility. For centuries, humanity believed progress was linear. That newer meant better. That survival belonged only to the most advanced. Neanderthals challenged this idea. They survived longer than our own species has so far. They thrived in conditions that would defeat many modern humans without technology. They built lives that worked not briefly, but for hundreds of thousands of years. They were not weak, they were not inferior, they were specialized, and specialization, while powerful, can become vulnerable when the world changes too quickly. This does not make Neanderthals a cautionary tale, it makes them a reminder that intelligence takes many forms, that success is not always loud. That resilience can look quiet, steady, and deeply connected to place and people. Modern humans inherited not only Neanderthal genes, but Neanderthal challenges: climate change, environmental instability, resource scarcity, social fragmentation. These are not new problems, they are ancient ones faced before by those who came before us. Neanderthals show us that survival is not just about tools or strength. It is about cooperation, care, flexibility. The willingness to support one another when conditions grow harsh. As science continues to uncover Neanderthal history, the image grows warmer, richer, more familiar. No longer creatures of darkness and brute force, but people of firelight and shared life. They laugh perhaps, they mourn, they worry, they hope, they plan, they rest. They are us in another form. When we sleep, our bodies still follow rhythms shaped by long nights and flickering flames. Our brains relax in dim light. Our nervous systems respond to warmth and safety in ways that feel instinctive. These instincts were shaped long before electricity. They were shaped in caves and open shelters, beneath Ice Age skies, beside fires tended carefully through the night. Neanderthals did not know they were shaping the future. They were simply living, and that may be their greatest legacy. For a long time, those questions are uncomfortable. When early scholars begin to uncover Neanderthal bones in caves and river valleys, they do not know what to do with them. The bones do not fit neatly into existing stories. They look human, but not quite, too heavy, too broad, too unfamiliar. And so the interpretations reflect fear more than understanding. Neanderthals are labeled primitive, violent, animal-like. They are used as contrast, as a way to elevate modern humans by comparison. The story becomes simple and flattering. We survived because we were smarter, better, more advanced, but the Earth keeps offering evidence. Each new discovery complicates the picture. Each excavation reveals another detail that refuses to fit the old narrative. Tools are found far from raw material sources, suggesting planning and travel. Hearths appear again and again in the same locations, showing repeated use and long-term occupation. Bones with healed injuries speak quietly of care. Slowly, reluctantly, the story begins to change. Researchers realize that Neanderthals did not live short, chaotic lives. Many lived into adulthood and old age. They survived trauma that would have killed individuals without help. They return to the same places year after year, generation after generation. This is not randomness, this is culture. Culture does not require cities or writing. It requires shared knowledge, shared behavior, and shared meaning. Neanderthals had all three. As the modern understanding deepens, scientists begin to look not just at what Neanderthals made, but how they lived. Their daily energy use is studied. Their muscle attachments reveal patterns of movement. Their teeth tell stories of diet and childhood stress. Their bones show seasonal strain, patterns of effort repeated year after year. These bodies were not shaped by chaos. They were shaped by routine. Neanderthals lived in a way that balanced effort and rest. Intense bursts of physical activity followed by long periods of recovery. Hunting was demanding but not constant. Travel was purposeful, not endless. Fire allowed them to pause, to recover, to conserve energy. This rhythm mattered. In cold environments, energy efficiency can mean survival. Fire and cooked food reduced the calories needed just to stay alive. This freed energy for growth, healing, and reproduction. Neanderthals understood this balance intuitively. Their lives were not rushed. They did not chase constant expansion. They did not overextend their environment beyond what they could manage. They lived within limits, adapting slowly to change. This way of life works beautifully in a stable world, but stability is rare. As climate shifts accelerate toward the end of the Neanderthal era, those slow adaptations become harder to maintain. Rapid environmental change favors flexibility and wide social networks. It favors faster innovation and broader exchange. Modern humans thrive in these conditions. Neanderthals, with their deep local knowledge and smaller social circles, struggle more. This does not mean they lack intelligence. It means they are optimized for a different kind of world. When modern humans spread across Eurasia, they do not arrive as a single wave. They come in pulses over thousands of years, responding to opportunities and pressures. They bring new tool types, new hunting strategies, and perhaps new ways of organizing social life. Neanderthals observe this. They adapt where they can. In some regions, their tools begin to resemble those of modern humans. In others, hybrid traditions emerge. This blending is not evidence of replacement, but of interaction. Knowledge is shared, and knowledge sharing requires trust. Trust requires recognition of the other as similar enough to matter. Neanderthals recognize modern humans as people. Modern humans recognize Neanderthals as people. This recognition is written into DNA. Interbreeding does not happen between species that see each other only as threats. It happens when barriers soften, when proximity leads to familiarity, when lives overlap. Children born from these unions grow up in complex social environments. They carry memories, skills, and genes from both worlds. They become bridges between populations. Over time, these bridges become the norm. Distinct Neanderthal communities grow fewer. Mixed communities grow more common. Cultural practices blend. Physical traits merge. Eventually, there are no longer clear boundaries. The Neanderthal story does not end with disappearance. It ends with transformation. For modern humans, this transformation has consequences that last to the present day. Neanderthal genes influence immune systems, helping early modern humans adapt to new pathogens outside Africa. They affect skin pigmentation, hair texture, and fat distribution, aiding survival in colder climates. Even aspects of sleep patterns may be influenced, reflecting ancient adaptations to long nights and variable daylight. These traits are not obvious, they do not announce themselves. They exist quietly, shaping how bodies respond to the world, just as Neanderthals once lived quietly, shaping the human story without knowing it. The modern rediscovery of Neanderthals forces humanity to reconsider what it means to be human. If intelligence, compassion, and culture existed before art galleries and written language, then humanity is deeper and broader than once believed. If another kind of human could love, care, plan, and adapt, then humanity is not a narrow path but a wide landscape. Neanderthals expand that landscape. They remind us that there were many ways to be human, not just one. They also remind us that survival is not guaranteed by strength alone. It depends on connection, adaptability, and timing. The world changes, sometimes faster than any group can fully respond to. This is not failure, it is reality. As we look back now with knowledge and perspective, it becomes clear that Neanderthals lived lives filled with meaning, even if that meaning was never written down. They mattered to each other. They mattered to the people who came after them. They matter still. Their fires may be cold, but their influence is warm. Every time a human seeks comfort in routine, every time we value community over isolation, every time we care for someone who cannot immediately repay that care, we echo Neanderthal behavior. These instincts are ancient. They were shaped long before agriculture, long before cities, long before nations. They were shaped in small groups in cold landscapes beside carefully tended fires. As the modern world grows louder and faster, Neanderthals offer a quiet counterpoint. A reminder that life does not need to be complex to be meaningful. That progress does not always mean speed. That survival can be gentle as well as strong. Their story asks us to slow down, to pay attention, to value connection over conquest. Long after Neanderthals ceased to exist as a distinct people, their ways of being do not vanish. They persist subtly, woven into instincts so old they feel natural, unquestioned. These instincts do not announce their origins. They simply guide behavior, shaping how humans respond to the world, especially in moments of rest, stress, and connection. Consider sleep. For modern humans, sleep is often framed as a break from life, a shutdown. But for Neanderthals, sleep was never complete withdrawal. It was lighter, more responsive, shaped by a world where danger could approach at any time. Fire reduced fear but did not erase it entirely. Bodies rested but senses remained alert. This pattern still lives within us. Even today, many people sleep more lightly in unfamiliar places. A change in environment can disrupt rest. Sounds are noticed. Movements stir the mind. This is not weakness, it is inheritance. A legacy from ancestors who survived by remaining aware even in rest. Neanderthals shaped this balance. Their world required vigilance without panic, awareness without exhaustion. Fire made this possible by creating a zone of relative safety, allowing deeper rest without complete vulnerability. Modern sleep environments mimic this ancient pattern more than we realize. Dim light, warmth, familiar sounds, the absence of sudden movement. These conditions signal safety to a nervous system shaped long before modern walls and locks. Candles, nightlights, and fireplaces are not just aesthetic. They soothe something ancient. They whisper to the body that it is safe to rest. Neanderthals also shaped how humans respond to stress. Their lives were physically demanding but psychologically grounded. Stress came in bursts, not constants, a hunt, a storm, an injury, then recovery. Long periods of calm followed moments of intensity. This rhythm regulated their nervous systems. Modern life disrupts this pattern. Stress becomes constant. Recovery is delayed. Fire no longer marks the end of the day. Artificial light extends wakefulness. The ancient rhythm is strained, and yet the body still longs for it. When people feel overwhelmed, they seek quiet, warmth, familiar routines. Social closeness. These are Neanderthal solutions, not modern inventions. The desire to gather with trusted others during difficult times is ancient. Neanderthals survived harsh environments not as isolated individuals, but as groups. Emotional regulation happened collectively. Fear was shared, relief was shared, grief was shared. Modern psychology is only now rediscovering what Neanderthals lived daily, that safety is social. Loneliness is not just emotional discomfort. It triggers ancient survival alarms. For Neanderthals, isolation could mean death. The nervous system learned to treat separation as danger. This is why human beings still suffer deeply from social isolation. It is not weakness, it is memory. Neanderthals also left their mark on how humans experience emotion. Their lives were close to necessity: hunger, cold, injury, death. These realities sharpen emotional responses. Joy was found in warmth, food, safety, and presence. Grief was experienced openly, without abstraction. There was no distance between emotion and survival. This closeness to feeling shaped deep emotional awareness. Modern humans still respond strongly to simple comforts: a warm meal, a shared fire, physical closeness. These things calm emotions faster than abstract reassurance. They speak directly to ancient systems shaped by Neanderthal life. The mind understands stories, but the body understands warmth. Neanderthals knew this without knowing it. They structured life around physical comfort and shared presence. Fire was emotional regulation as much as survival. Eating together reinforced bonds. Sleeping near others reduced fear. These behaviors stabilized groups over generations. Modern humans have inherited this emotional wiring even as society has moved away from its original supports. We still seek rituals that mirror ancient patterns: family dinners, evening gatherings, campfires, bedtime routines. These rituals work because they are old. They align with how the human nervous system evolved. Neanderthals also shaped human patience. Their world moved slowly. Change happened across seasons, not minutes. Tools were made carefully. Food was gathered with effort. Results were delayed. This fostered tolerance for waiting, for repetition, for uncertainty. Modern humans often struggle with patience, not because we are incapable of it, but because our environment no longer requires it in the same way. And yet, when people slow down, many report a sense of relief, as if returning to something familiar. This familiarity is ancestral. It is Neanderthal time. Their lives unfolded at a pace the body still recognizes as natural. Neanderthals also understood limits. They did not seek endless growth. They lived within what their environment could support. Overhunting or overexploitation would threaten survival. This awareness was built into daily decision-making. Modern humans have largely lost this sense of immediate consequence, but the instinct remains. An unease arises when environments feel overstretched, when noise, light, or speed exceed tolerable limits. Burnout is not just modern exhaustion, it is the body signaling that ancient thresholds have been crossed. Neanderthals lived below those thresholds. Their world was harsh, but it was not overwhelming in the same way. It demanded effort, but allowed recovery. It asked for attention, but offered rest. Fire was central to this balance. Fire marked transitions, day to night, work to rest, activity to stillness. Its glow signaled that vigilance could soften, that it was time to sit, to eat, to connect, to sleep. Modern humans struggle with transitions. Screens replace sunsets. Artificial light replaces fire. The body receives no clear signal that the day has ended. Ancient rhythms are disrupted. And yet, when people turn off lights, sit quietly, and reduce stimulation, the body responds with gratitude. This response is ancient. It is Neanderthal. Neanderthals also shaped how humans experience belonging. Identity was not abstract, it was immediate. You belonged to the people you lived with, the land you knew, the fire you shared. There was no separation between self and group. Modern identity is often fragmented, abstracted, defined by distant systems rather than lived relationships. This fragmentation creates anxiety. The desire to belong remains powerful because it once meant survival. Neanderthals lived this truth daily. Belonging was warmth, belonging was food, belonging was safety. To be excluded was to face the cold alone. This is why rejection still hurts deeply, why inclusion feels nourishing, why humans instinctively seek community even when it is difficult. These reactions are not learned socially. They are inherited biologically. Neanderthals also influenced human creativity. While their art may have been subtle, it existed. Patterns, pigments, objects chosen for meaning rather than function. These expressions were not distractions. They were ways of making sense of the world. Creativity soothed uncertainty. It provided continuity. It allowed meaning to emerge in a world where control was limited. Modern creativity serves the same purpose. Music, art, storytelling, ritual. These practices help humans process fear, loss, and change. They regulate emotion. They strengthen bonds. Neanderthals practiced this instinctively. They did not separate art from life. It was woven into daily existence. Their legacy reminds us that creativity is not luxury. It is survival. As we move through modern life filled with complexity and speed, Neanderthals stand quietly behind us, reminding us of simpler truths. That warmth matters. That rest matters. That connection matters. That humanity did not begin with dominance but with cooperation. That progress does not erase the past but carries it forward. The Neanderthal story is not distant, it is intimate. It lives in how humans sleep, how we soothe ourselves, how we seek safety and connection. It lives in the nervous system, in habits older than language. And when we listen closely, especially in moments of quiet, we can still feel it. Modern humans live surrounded by speed. Light no longer fades naturally. Food arrives without hunting. Warmth is summoned with a switch. Community is fragmented across distances and screens. The body, however, has not changed nearly as fast as the world around it. It still listens for cues shaped over hundreds of thousands of years. It still expects transitions, pauses, and shared moments of safety. This is where the Neanderthal legacy becomes most relevant, not as history, not as science, but as guidance. Neanderthals lived in balance not because life was easy, but because survival demanded attention to limits. Energy could not be wasted, stress could not be constant, connection could not be optional. These realities shaped a way of life that prioritized recovery as much as effort. Fire marked the boundary. When fire was lit, the hunt was over, movement slowed, voices softened, the body was allowed to rest. This clear signal helped regulate cycles of action and stillness. Modern humans rarely receive such signals. Work blends into evening. Evening blends into night. Stimulation continues long past sunset. The nervous system never fully powers down. Rest becomes shallow, fragmented. And yet when humans intentionally recreate ancient conditions, the body responds, lowering lights in the evening, gathering in small groups, sharing meals slowly, sitting near warmth, reducing noise. These simple actions often produce profound calm, not because they are new, but because they are remembered. Neanderthals remind us that rest is not laziness, it is preparation. Their survival depended on knowing when to stop, when to conserve energy, when to sit quietly and let the body repair itself. Injuries healed because rest was respected. Minds stayed sharp because vigilance was balanced with calm. Modern culture often glorifies constant activity, but the body resists this. Burnout, anxiety, and chronic fatigue are signals that ancient systems are overwhelmed. They are not failures of willpower. They are biological warnings shaped by long evolutionary history. Neanderthals lived below those warning thresholds. They worked hard, but they also rested deeply. They did not measure productivity by constant motion, but by survival and continuity. Another lesson they offer is presence. Neanderthals lived where they were. Their awareness was rooted in immediate surroundings. Sounds mattered, smells mattered. Subtle changes in the environment carried meaning. This kind of presence grounded the mind in the present moment. Modern humans are often mentally elsewhere. Thoughts jump ahead, worries linger behind, attention is pulled in many directions. This fragmentation increases stress. Practices that encourage presence, such as focusing on breath, sensation, or surroundings, often bring relief. These practices feel calming because they align with ancient modes of awareness. Neanderthals did not practice mindfulness as a concept, they lived it as necessity. Awareness kept them alive. Their attention was not scattered, it was focused. This focus also shaped how they related to time. Neanderthal time was cyclical, not linear. Seasons returned, animals migrated and returned, life followed patterns. There was no expectation of endless growth or constant novelty. Modern time feels linear and urgent. Deadlines replace seasons. Progress is measured continuously. There is little sense of return, only movement forward. This creates pressure. The body, however, still expects cycles, periods of intensity followed by periods of rest, times of abundance followed by quiet. Without these cycles, stress accumulates. Neanderthals lived within cycles because the land enforced them. Modern humans must often recreate them intentionally. Sleep routines, rest days, seasonal rhythms. These practices restore balance not because they are trendy, but because they are ancient. Neanderthals also offer insight into resilience. They faced hardship regularly. Cold, hunger, injury, loss, but these hardships were shared. No one faced them alone. Resilience was collective. Modern resilience is often framed as individual toughness, but humans evolved to survive together. Support networks are not optional extras, they are biological needs. Neanderthals understood this instinctively. Caring for the injured strengthened the group, supporting elders preserved knowledge. Protecting children ensured continuity. Isolation weakens resilience, connection strengthens it. This is why community support improves recovery from stress and trauma. It activates ancient safety systems. It tells the nervous system that danger can be faced together. Neanderthals lived inside this truth. Another quiet lesson lies in their relationship with material possessions. Neanderthals owned little. What they carried had purpose. Tools were maintained, repaired, reused. Excess was impractical. Everything had weight. This simplicity reduced mental load. There was no clutter, no constant decision-making about what to keep or discard. Life was focused. Modern humans often live surrounded by excess. This excess can overwhelm attention and increase stress. Simplifying environments often brings relief because it mirrors ancient conditions where only what mattered was present. Neanderthals remind us that simplicity is not deprivation, it is clarity. Their lives were rich in experience, not objects. Firelight, shared meals, movement through land. These experiences provided meaning without accumulation. Neanderthals also understood uncertainty. They lived without guarantees. Weather could change, hunts could fail, life could end suddenly. Rather than resisting uncertainty, they adapted to it. Modern humans often attempt to control uncertainty completely. When control fails, anxiety rises. Learning to tolerate uncertainty is essential for mental health, and it is deeply rooted in human history. Neanderthals lived with uncertainty daily and developed psychological flexibility as a result. They planned, but they did not cling rigidly to plans. They adapted. This adaptability is still present within us. When people practice acceptance, flexibility, and resilience, they are engaging ancient systems shaped by long survival under uncertain conditions. Neanderthals also remind us of the importance of place. They knew their landscapes intimately. Place was identity. Knowledge of land provided safety and belonging. This deep connection grounded them emotionally. Modern humans are often disconnected from place. Movement is frequent. Environments are interchangeable. This can create a sense of rootlessness. Reconnecting with place, whether through nature, routine, or familiarity, can restore a sense of stability. It tells the body that it knows where it is. Neanderthals lived this stability. Their bodies recognized home not by address but by terrain, smell, and memory. Another subtle legacy lies in storytelling. Neanderthals may not have told stories as we do now, but they shared experiences, lessons, and memories orally and through demonstration. These shared narratives helped groups learn and bond. Storytelling regulates emotion. It gives shape to experience. Modern humans still rely on stories to make sense of life. Myths, histories, personal narratives, these practices soothe uncertainty and create continuity. Neanderthals participated in this process long before writing. Their stories were lived, repeated, embodied. The need for narrative is ancient. It is part of being human. As modern humans rediscover Neanderthals not as curiosities, but as relatives, a new understanding emerges. Humanity is not defined by a single path, but by many overlapping ways of living. Neanderthals represent one of those ways, a way centered on cooperation, patience, presence, and respect for limits. Their disappearance was not a judgment, it was circumstance. Their contributions remain. They live on in bodies, minds, and instincts. They whisper reminders through discomfort when life moves too fast, through calm when we slow down, through longing for warmth, connection, and rest. They remind us that humanity's strength does not lie only in innovation, but in care. That survival is not only about conquering the environment, but about living within it. That progress does not erase the need for ancient rhythms. Relearning the Neanderthal rhythm does not mean abandoning modern life. It means listening more closely to what the body already knows. Neanderthals did not separate life into categories like work, rest, and meaning. These things flowed together naturally. Effort led to rest. Rest supported effort. Meaning emerged from shared survival. Nothing existed in isolation. Modern life often fragments these experiences. Work becomes disconnected from rest. Rest becomes rushed or delayed. Meaning is searched for separately as something to add later. This fragmentation creates tension because the human system evolved for integration. Neanderthals lived integrated lives. When they hunted, it was for the group. When they rested, it was together. When they gathered around fire, it was not leisure as an activity, but a natural transition into safety and connection. This integration reduced inner conflict. There was no pressure to optimize every moment. Survival itself gave structure. The body knew when effort was required and when it could soften. Modern humans often struggle to identify when it is safe to stop. The nervous system remains alert, scanning for threats that are no longer physical but abstract, deadlines, expectations. Social comparison. These threats do not end at sunset. Neanderthals remind us that safety must be felt, not reasoned. Their safety came from warmth, proximity, and predictability. Firelight, familiar faces, and known routines told the body it could relax. Modern safety cues must be created intentionally. Lowering stimulation in the evening, creating consistent routines, spending time with trusted people. These actions speak directly to ancient systems. They say, you are not alone. You can rest. Neanderthals also lived close to discomfort without being consumed by it. Cold, hunger, fatigue were part of life, but they were not constant. They came and went. The body learned that discomfort had an end. Modern discomfort often feels endless. Chronic stress has no clear resolution. The body remains braced. Over time, this leads to exhaustion. Neanderthal life teaches that stress must be episodic. Effort must be followed by recovery. This pattern is not optional. It is biological. Reintroducing clear boundaries between effort and rest helps restore balance. Ending the day deliberately, creating rituals that signal closure. These practices may seem small, but they align with ancient expectations. Neanderthals did not need motivation to rest. Rest was survival. Modern humans must sometimes relearn this truth. Another lesson lies in sensory simplicity. Neanderthal environments were rich, but not overwhelming. Sounds were natural. Light was limited, smells were familiar. The sensory system was engaged but not flooded. Modern environments often overload the senses. Artificial light, constant noise, visual clutter. The nervous system struggles to filter this input, leading to fatigue. Reducing sensory load brings relief because it mirrors ancient conditions. Quiet spaces, dim lighting, natural textures. These are not luxuries, they are regulatory. Neanderthals lived within sensory limits. Their nervous systems evolved expecting such conditions. When modern humans recreate them, the body responds with calm. Neanderthals also lived with a strong sense of purpose. Purpose was immediate and shared, keeping the group alive, protecting the fire, caring for the injured, teaching the young. There was no existential uncertainty about why effort mattered. Modern purpose can feel abstract, disconnected from daily actions. This creates anxiety and dissatisfaction. Purpose does not need to be grand. Neanderthals show that purpose rooted in care, contribution, and continuity is deeply fulfilling. Modern humans often find meaning when helping others, caring for family, contributing to community. These activities activate ancient reward systems shaped by survival in small groups. Neanderthals did not question the value of care. It was obvious. Care strengthened the group. Care ensured survival. Care mattered. This understanding still lives within us. Another aspect of Neanderthal life worth remembering is their relationship with death. Death was present but not hidden. It was part of life's rhythm. When death occurred, it was acknowledged. Bodies were treated with intention. Loss was shared. Modern societies often distance themselves from death. This distance can increase fear. Neanderthals faced death without abstraction. It was real, but it was communal. Grief was not isolated. Mourning happened within the group. Sharing grief regulated emotion. Modern humans benefit from similar practices. Community support during loss reduces trauma. Rituals provide structure for grief. These practices are ancient. They come from a time when survival depended on emotional honesty and shared burden. Neanderthals also lived without the illusion of permanence. Nothing was guaranteed. Shelters could be lost. Food could disappear. Life required flexibility. This fostered resilience. Modern humans often expect stability. When change comes, it feels like failure. Neanderthals remind us that change is normal. Adaptation is strength. Resilience comes from flexibility, not control. This lesson is deeply relevant in a rapidly changing world. As environments shift and systems become unstable, Neanderthal resilience offers guidance. Stay connected, stay adaptable, rest when possible, share burdens, keep the fire alive. The fire in this sense is not literal. It is whatever creates warmth, safety, and connection. In modern life, the fire might be a shared meal, a quiet conversation, a familiar routine, a space where vigilance can soften. Protecting this fire matters. Neanderthals prioritized it because without it, survival was impossible. Modern humans often sacrifice it without realizing the cost. Reclaiming this fire does not require dramatic change. It requires attention. Attention to transitions, attention to limits, attention to connection. Neanderthals paid attention because their lives depended on it. Modern humans can choose to pay attention because well-being depends on it. Another lesson lies in embodiment. Neanderthals lived in their bodies. Physical effort, sensation, and movement were constant. This kept mind and body aligned. Modern humans often live in abstraction. Thought dominates. The body is ignored until it demands attention through pain or fatigue. Reconnecting with the body restores balance, movement, sensation, breath. These anchor the mind in the present. Neanderthals did not need practices to reconnect with their bodies. Their lives required it. Modern humans benefit from reintroducing this connection intentionally. The body carries ancient wisdom. It remembers how to regulate itself when given the right conditions. Neanderthals trusted the body. They listened to fatigue. They respected injury. They rested when necessary. Modern culture often encourages overriding bodily signals. This creates conflict. Listening again is an act of remembering. Neanderthals also lived with humility toward the environment. They did not see themselves as separate from nature. They were part of it. The land was not conquered, it was navigated, respected, understood. Modern humans often adopt a stance of dominance. This creates tension with natural limits. Neanderthal humility offers a different approach. Adapt to the environment rather than forcing it to adapt entirely to you. This mindset reduces struggle. Living with rather than against systems creates sustainability. This applies not only to nature, but to the body and mind. Neanderthals lived sustainably because they had no choice. Modern humans must choose it consciously. As we integrate these lessons, Neanderthals no longer feel distant. They feel like teachers, quiet ones. They do not speak in words. They speak through instinct, through relief when we slow down, through calm when we gather, through warmth when we create safe spaces. Their wisdom does not demand return to the past, it invites remembrance. To carry Neanderthals within us is not merely a biological fact, it is a responsibility. They survived by paying attention, by noticing small changes in the land, the weather, the body, and each other. Their lives depended on sensitivity, not dominance, awareness, not excess, balance, not speed. Modern humanity stands at a moment where these qualities matter again. The world is changing quickly. Climate shifts, social strain, environmental limits, and emotional exhaustion echo challenges that Neanderthals once faced in their own way. The scale is different, the tools are different, but the underlying question is the same. How do humans survive change without losing themselves? Neanderthals answered this question not with grand solutions, but with daily practice. They adapted slowly, collectively, and attentively. They did not attempt to outrun change. They learned to live within it. This approach offers guidance now. Neanderthals remind us that resilience is not about constant expansion. It is about continuity, about keeping what matters alive through uncertainty, about preserving warmth, connection, and care even as the world shifts. Their story challenges modern assumptions about progress. Progress is often framed as accumulation, more technology, more speed, more growth, but Neanderthals show another definition: progress as survival with dignity. Progress as maintaining humanity under pressure. They lived successfully for hundreds of thousands of years without overwhelming their environment. They adapted without destroying their foundations. They prioritized group well-being over individual excess. This is not nostalgia, it is instruction. Modern humans have immense power, but power without restraint leads to instability. Neanderthals remind us that limits are not failures, they are safeguards. Their lives were shaped by limits. Energy was finite, resources were local, time was cyclical. These constraints forced cooperation and care. They prevented runaway behavior. Modern life often removes limits artificially. Food is abundant but disconnected from land. Light extends endlessly. Work has no natural endpoint. Without limits, systems strain. Reintroducing limits is not regression, it is wisdom. Neanderthals lived with natural boundaries because they had no alternative. Modern humans must choose boundaries intentionally. This choice determines whether ancient instincts become guides or sources of distress. When limits are ignored, the body protests, anxiety rises, fatigue deepens, disconnection spreads. These are signals, not flaws. They are reminders that the human system evolved for a different pace. Neanderthals lived at that pace. They moved with daylight, rested with darkness, worked in bursts, recovered fully. Their nervous systems were calibrated to survive without constant activation. Modern nervous systems are often overloaded. The solution is not escape, it is recalibration. Neanderthals recalibrated constantly through routine, through fire, through shared presence, through respect for fatigue and injury. These practices can be translated into modern life, ending the day deliberately, creating spaces of low stimulation, prioritizing shared meals, valuing rest as essential rather than optional. These are not lifestyle trends, they are ancient survival strategies. Neanderthals also teach us about humility toward time. They lived without the illusion of permanence. Camps were temporary, seasons changed, landscapes shifted, life was fragile. This awareness fostered gratitude and attentiveness. Modern humans often live as if permanence is guaranteed. When systems fail, shock follows. Neanderthals remind us that impermanence is normal. Accepting this reduces fear. It encourages preparation rather than denial. Their approach to time was grounded. They planned, but they did not cling. They adapted, but they did not rush. This balance allowed them to endure. Neanderthals also model a different relationship with success. Success was not individual achievement, it was group survival. It was the ability to keep children alive, to care for elders, to recover from injury, to make it through winter. These measures of success are deeply human. Modern success often emphasizes visibility, status, and accumulation. These metrics can conflict with well-being. Neanderthal success was quieter. It was measured in continuity, in warmth maintained, in fires that did not go out. This perspective shifts values. It encourages care over competition. It values stability over novelty. It recognizes that not everything needs to grow to be meaningful. Neanderthals also challenge the idea that humanity is defined by dominance over nature. They lived within ecosystems, not above them. They adapted to animals, weather, and terrain rather than reshaping everything aggressively. Modern humanity has largely reversed this relationship. The consequences are visible. Environmental instability mirrors psychological instability. Relearning coexistence is essential. Neanderthals offer an example of what coexistence looks like. It is not passive, it is attentive. It requires knowledge, respect, and restraint. They learned their land intimately. Modern humans often live disconnected from the sources of food, water, and energy. Reconnecting with these systems restores perspective. It reminds us that survival is relational. Neanderthals understood this instinctively. Their lives depended on relationships with land, animals, and each other. Another enduring lesson lies in grief and memory. Neanderthals did not erase their dead. They remembered them through care, placement, and presence. Death was acknowledged, not hidden. Modern cultures often struggle with grief. Isolation increases suffering. Neanderthals remind us that grief must be shared. That mourning is not weakness, it is integration. Loss processed together strengthens groups. This practice remains relevant. Communities that share grief recover more fully. This is ancient knowledge. Neanderthals lived it. They also remind us that intelligence is not singular. For a long time, intelligence was measured by tools, art, or speed of innovation. Neanderthals were judged by modern standards and found lacking, but intelligence is contextual. Neanderthals were intelligent for their world. They solved the problems they faced with remarkable efficiency. Their intelligence was embodied, social, and ecological. Modern intelligence often prioritizes abstraction, but abstraction without grounding can disconnect. Neanderthals balanced thought with sensation, planning with presence. This balance is still needed. As humanity faces complex challenges, purely abstract solutions may fail. Embodied understanding matters, social cohesion matters, environmental attunement matters. These were Neanderthal strengths. Their disappearance does not negate their intelligence. It highlights the fragility of adaptation when conditions change too quickly. This lesson is urgent. Change accelerates now. Adaptation must be collective. Neanderthals survived as long as they did because they adapted together. Modern humanity must do the same. Their story is not about extinction, it is about transition. They did not vanish without impact. They merged, they contributed, they shaped what came next. Humanity today is not separate from Neanderthals. It is the continuation of their story. Every human carries traces of ancient resilience. Every nervous system responds to warmth and safety. Every body seeks rest after. Every heart longs for connection. These longings are not modern problems, they are ancient truths. Neanderthals remind us that humanity did not begin with conquest. It began with cooperation around a fire, with shared food, with care for the injured, with patience through winter. These beginnings matter. They define what humanity is at its core. As the modern world grows louder, faster, and more complex, Neanderthals offer a quiet counterbalance. They do not demand imitation. They invite remembrance. They ask us to slow down enough to hear what the body already knows, to recognize when we have gone too far, to return to what sustains rather than what exhausts. Their wisdom is not written, it is felt. It emerges in calm when lights dim, in relief when work ends, in safety when trusted people gather, in sleep that comes more easily when the world grows quiet. These moments are not accidental, they are echoes. Echoes of fires that once burned steadily through long nights. Echoes of people who survived by tending those fires carefully. Neanderthals are not behind us, they are within us. And as humanity moves forward into an uncertain future, their quiet presence may be one of our greatest strengths. They remind us that to survive is not merely to endure, it is to remain human. This is where we pause again. The Neanderthals never imagined the future. They did not plan for centuries ahead. They planned for the coming night, the coming winter, the coming generation. Their thinking was grounded in continuity rather than projection. Survival meant ensuring that tomorrow was possible, that children would grow, that knowledge would be passed on. This way of thinking shaped a future without naming it. Modern humans, by contrast, are obsessed with the future. We predict, we forecast, we simulate, we worry. We imagine catastrophes and utopias in equal measure. Yet in this fixation, we often neglect the present conditions that actually shape what comes next. Neanderthals remind us that the future is built quietly through daily actions, through how people treat one another, through how resources are used, through how rest is honored, through how limits are respected. They did not need visions of the distant future to survive for hundreds of thousands of years. They needed attention to what was immediately real. This attention is something modern humanity risks losing. As systems grow more complex, the distance between action and consequence increases. Damage becomes harder to see, responsibility becomes abstract. This creates disconnection. Neanderthals lived without that distance. If the land was overused, food disappeared. If cooperation failed, survival weakened. If fire was neglected, cold returned. Consequences were immediate and visible. This visibility kept behavior aligned with reality. Modern life often hides consequences. Energy appears limitless. Waste disappears from sight. Harm is delayed or displaced. This creates the illusion that limits no longer matter, but limits always matter. They may simply arrive later. Neanderthals offer a reminder that living within limits is not a burden, it is a form of wisdom. Their lives demonstrate that sustainability is not about restriction alone, but about balance, about taking what is needed and no more, about ensuring that systems can recover. This balance allowed them to endure. Modern humanity must rediscover this balance, not because the past demands it, but because the future depends on it. Neanderthals also teach us something vital about scale. They lived in small groups. Their social worlds were intimate. Every person mattered. Every absence was felt. This scale made care unavoidable. Modern societies operate at massive scale. Millions of lives are abstract numbers. Suffering becomes statistics. Responsibility feels diluted. This scale can erode empathy. Neanderthals remind us that humanity evolved for closeness. While large societies can function, they must preserve small-scale care within them. Communities, families, trusted circles. Without these, people feel lost. Neanderthals survived because they could not afford to lose anyone unnecessarily. Care was not optional, it was embedded. Modern humanity must choose to embed care again. This choice shapes resilience. A society that cares for its vulnerable is stronger, not weaker. Neanderthals knew this intuitively. They carried injured members, fed those who could not hunt, protected children, honored elders. These actions cost energy, but they returned value. They preserved knowledge, strengthened bonds, increased survival. Modern systems sometimes frame care as inefficiency. Neanderthals prove otherwise. Care is investment. Care is continuity. Care is survival. Another lesson lies in how Neanderthals faced uncertainty. They lived without guarantees, yet they did not despair constantly. They adapted expectations to reality. Hope was practical, not abstract. Modern hope is often framed as optimism without grounding. When reality fails to match expectation, despair follows. Neanderthal hope was quieter. It was hope that the fire would last through the night, that the hunt would succeed often enough, that children would grow. This kind of hope is resilient. It does not require perfection. It requires persistence. Modern humanity may need to rediscover this form of hope. Not hope that everything will be solved easily, but hope that effort, cooperation, and care can carry us through difficulty. Neanderthals lived with that hope daily. They woke each morning not knowing what the day would bring, but trusting that together they could face it. This trust was earned through shared experience. Modern trust is often strained. Systems fail. Promises break. Institutions falter. Trust must be rebuilt at human scale. Neanderthals show how, through reliability, through showing up, through tending the fire night after night, trust grows from consistency, not words. Neanderthals were consistent. They did what needed to be done. Another quiet inheritance lies in how Neanderthals understood knowledge. Knowledge was not abstract data, it was embodied. You knew something because you had done it, seen it, survived it. Knowledge lived in muscles, senses, and memory. Modern knowledge is often disembodied. Information is abundant, but understanding can be shallow. Neanderthals remind us that knowing is more than having information, it is having experience. This matters as humanity faces complex challenges. Solutions cannot be purely theoretical. They must be lived, tested, adjusted. Neanderthals learned through iteration, through trial and error, through paying attention. This approach remains powerful. Another lesson lies in humility toward mystery. Neanderthals lived in a world full of unknowns. Weather, illness, animal behavior, death. They did not pretend to control everything. They responded rather than dominated. This humility reduced psychological strain. Modern humanity often seeks to eliminate mystery. When it cannot, anxiety rises. Neanderthals accepted mystery as part of life. This acceptance allowed them to focus on what they could influence. Modern humans may benefit from similar acceptance. Not everything can be predicted. Not everything can be controlled. But much can be cared for. Neanderthals cared deeply. They cared for fire, for each other, for knowledge, for place. This care created stability within uncertainty. Another enduring lesson is the importance of endings. Neanderthal life had clear endings. The day ended when the fire was lit. The season ended when migration shifted. Life ended when death came. These endings were marked, not ignored. Modern life often lacks clear endings. Work extends indefinitely. Attention never rests. This creates chronic tension. Reintroducing endings restores balance, closing the day, ending effort, allowing rest. These practices align with ancient rhythms. Neanderthals lived by them naturally. Modern humans must choose them. Neanderthals also teach us about quiet strength. Their strength was not loud, it was persistent. They endured cold, injury, and loss without spectacle. They adapted without praise. They survived without monuments. Modern culture often celebrates visible strength. Neanderthal strength was invisible but profound. It lived in patience, in care, in continuity. This kind of strength is deeply relevant now. It does not draw attention, it sustains life. As humanity faces long-term challenges, quiet strength may matter more than dramatic action. Neanderthals mastered quiet strength. Their story reminds us that endurance is built from small, repeated acts, tending the fire, sharing food, resting when needed, caring for the vulnerable. These acts accumulate, they shape futures. Neanderthals also challenge the idea that extinction equals failure. Their disappearance as a distinct group does not erase their success. They lived longer than any civilization. They shaped the human genome. They influenced behavior, emotion, and survival strategies that persist today. Their story is not tragedy, it is transformation. Modern humanity often fears change. Neanderthals show that change does not mean disappearance, it can mean integration. Continuation, legacy. Their legacy lives not in monuments but in people, in instincts, in nervous systems, in the quiet relief felt when warmth and safety return. As we move toward the end of this long narration, the Neanderthals no longer feel distant. They feel present. They feel familiar. They feel like ancestors whose lessons are whispered rather than spoken. They ask little, only that we pay attention, that we remember what keeps humans alive, that we honor the rhythms that shaped us, that we tend our fires, whatever form they take. The future will not be built by forgetting the past. It will be built by integrating it, by carrying forward what worked, by releasing what no longer serves. Neanderthals offer a blueprint not for returning backward, but for moving forward with humility. They remind us that humanity is not defined by speed or dominance. It is defined by care, cooperation, and the ability to rest together in safety. As this part of the journey comes to rest, imagine once more a quiet night. The fire burns steadily. People sit close. The world beyond the light is uncertain, but within the circle there is warmth, there is presence, there is enough. This feeling has carried humanity through ice ages, migrations, and transformations. It can carry us still. This is where we pause again. And so we arrive at the end of this long journey, not as a sharp conclusion, but as a soft settling, the way a fire slowly lowers itself into glowing embers, still warm, still present, still alive. The Neanderthals rest now, not in disappearance, not in silence, but in continuity. They rest in the shape of human bodies that still respond to cold and warmth. They rest in nervous systems that calm in dim light and shared presence. They rest in instincts that draw people together at the end of the day, urging them to sit, to eat, to rest, to feel safe. They were never meant to be remembered through monuments or names. They were meant to be carried forward, and they were. Every generation since has carried something of them onward, often without knowing it. In the way children are comforted when they cry, in the way elders are still valued for memory and guidance, in the way humans instinctively protect the vulnerable even when it is difficult. These impulses are older than civilization. They come from a time when survival depended on care. The Neanderthals lived close to the truth of life. That effort must be balanced with rest. That strength must be paired with compassion. That survival is collective, not individual. They did not need philosophy to understand this. Their lives taught it to them daily. When modern humans first encountered Neanderthals, neither group could have known what would come next. They did not see the blending of futures. They did not imagine a world of cities, screens, and endless light. They only knew the present moment, the warmth of the fire, the cold beyond it, the faces beside them. That was enough, and in many ways it still is. As the world grows faster, louder, and more complex, the Neanderthal way of being offers something rare: permission to slow down. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to value connection over constant motion. They remind us that being human is not about conquering every challenge, but about enduring them together. They remind us that intelligence includes knowing when to stop. They remind us that progress is not always forward motion, but sometimes the wisdom to pause. The fire has changed shape, but its meaning has not. It still marks safety. It still gathers people. It still tells the body that the day is done. When you lower the lights at night, when you sit quietly after a long day, when you feel calmer in warmth and familiar presence, you are listening to something ancient. You are listening to Neanderthals. Their story does not end in extinction. It ends in inheritance. They gave humanity resilience shaped by cold nights and shared effort. They gave us patience shaped by long seasons and slow change. They gave us care shaped by survival in small, vulnerable groups. And perhaps most importantly, they gave us the understanding that life is not meant to be lived at full intensity all the time. It is meant to ebb and flow, to work and rest, to gather and sleep, to endure. As you listen now, wherever you are in the world, allow your body to recognize this moment. The story has been told. The fire is low. There is nothing more you need to do right now, just rest. The Neanderthals would understand that. And before you drift further into calm, if you enjoyed this long journey through deep time, I invite you to support the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already and leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought about this story and tell us where you are watching from in the world. Thank you for listening. Sleep well, and may the fire burn gently through the night.